From skin rarities to star drops to the brawlers themselves, rarities are one of the most recognizable and important parts of Brawl Stars. We all know them: rare, super rare, epic, mythic, and legendary, and the connotations surrounding them, like rare being the exact opposite of rare and legendary being whatever it is. In this video, I'm going to focus on brawler rarities and discuss why rarities, and especially the higher rarities like legendaries and mythics, have lost some of their meaning in the game and are basically no more than a measure of how long it takes to unlock a brawler. I've noticed a lot of you guys who watch my videos aren't subscribed, so if you watch these videos, consider subscribing. Second, join our Discord server. We have some fun stuff to do there, like our very own 1v1 ranked called Gauntlet. And finally, consider becoming a channel member if you're interested in supporting out the channel and have ample disposable income for some cool perks. Let me set the scene. It's 2020, and you're opening a brawl box with your friends. You expect nothing great, but when you click on the box, you notice the items remaining are higher than usual. Weird, but it's probably nothing special. And then you click through a few coins and power points and whatnot, until you're left with one item remaining. And guess what? It's flashing. You and your friends can barely conceal your excitement. A new brawler? Still, you guys think it's nothing more than like a super rare or epic brawler, something really nice and unexpected, but nothing too special. And then you tap on the screen to reveal your reward. As the reveal screen happens, you notice a figure with an oddly shaped head come up. Could it be? Yes, your very first legendary brawler, Leon. You and your friends jump up in excitement and disbelief at your luck, getting the brawler that all of them had tried to get for so long but had never gotten. For this day, and until someone else would get him, you would be known as the one guy who pulled Leon from a brawl box. Now, was that nostalgia bait? Probably, but it doesn't change the fact that legendaries were infinitely more hyped back in the old days, and felt much more like actual legendary brawlers, and not glorified mythics. But why was this? Why do legendaries and even mythic brawlers feel so cheap nowadays? Well, there are several reasons for this. First of all, the volume of mythic and legendary brawlers have increased dramatically. By the beginning of 2020, there were a total of 4 mythic brawlers and 4 legendary brawlers. This was with a total of 32 brawlers in the game at the time. This means 12.5% of the brawlers in the game were legendary brawlers, and 12.5% of the brawlers in the game were mythics. Brawl Stars did inflate the amount of legendary brawlers back then, with 2 being in beta, but keep in mind that this was balanced with their insanely low drop rates. What are the stats now, you ask? Well, there are 12 legendary brawlers, and an astonishing 29 brawlers of the mythic rarity. 13.6% of the brawlers in the game right now are legendary. And get ready for this. 33% of the brawlers in the game right now are mythic. This is the biggest percentage of all classes, and is even more than the epic rarity. How can you be considered the second most rare class in the game when your rarity literally has the most brawlers of any rarity? It doesn't make much sense. Now compare this with the rare rarity, which has 9% of the brawlers in the game, and the super rare rarity, with 11% of brawlers in the game. The last brawler of any of these rarities to be released was Gus, who was released in late 2022. I get not releasing rare brawlers anymore, but super rare should definitely not be as neglected as they are currently. Overall, the sheer volume of legendary and mythic brawlers have made the class lose a bit of its luster. Yes, there are reasons for it, but there shouldn't be this much of a disparity between brawlers of the rare and super rare classes and the brawlers of the mythic and legendary classes, and really makes these supposedly higher classes not feel as important. Now, let's go on to the second reason why rarities feel like they matter a lot less now. The uniqueness of the mechanics of brawlers of higher rarities has diminished. Let's take a look at a few examples of this. Crow, released in beta, is tied for the title of the very first legendary brawler. But why did he get that rarity? Simple. He was the very first brawler in the game with the ability to deal poison damage. In a game where most brawlers had somewhat simple mechanics and definitely had simple designs, with most of the beta brawlers being humans, Crow stood out. He was, for starters, a literal crow, but his ability to deal poison damage made him a very unique and interesting brawler. And then Byron released in 2020. Byron had the ability to deal poison damage, just like Crow. So now, what made Crow unique and deserving of the legendary rarity? If you answered nothing, you would be correct. They made one of the most unique mechanics in the game into, well, not the most unique mechanic in the game. But unfortunately, this wasn't the end of this. Leon is probably what you think of when you think of the legendary rarity, and it's not a stretch to consider him the poster boy of it. But what was his unique mechanic? Well, it was being able to go invisible with his super. This was unprecedented at the time and made Leon one of the most popular and fun brawlers in the game, largely due to this ability to go invisible. But like with Crow, this uniqueness couldn't last forever. Kit received a gadget where he could go invisible for a few seconds. What Leon could only do with charging up his super, Kit could do whenever he wanted to press his gadget button. To make matters even worse, Juju was released with a gadget that could make her invisible as well, basically throwing the idea that invisibility is a unique mechanic into the trash. And finally, there was Surge. Surge didn't start out as a legendary, as he started out as a chromatic brawler but got turned into a legendary brawler. He had an extremely unique mechanic. He could progressively upgrade in strength as the game went on. Some of these upgrades were things like extra range and speed. Like Leon's invisibility, this was a really unique and fun to play with mechanic, and really made Surge feel like he deserves the legendary rarity. Of course, this didn't last, and this unique mechanic had to come to an end with the release of everyone's least favorite who knows what, Clancy. Clancy has a mechanic in which he gets stronger as the game progresses and he hits his shots, with buffs being to his movement speed and range. Sound familiar? It's basically the same exact thing as Surge. Other than a few tiny differences, Surge and Clancy are basically the same exact brawler, and have the same strengths and weaknesses. At least with Crow and Leon, the brawlers who took their mechanics had completely different playstyles. But Surge and Clancy have basically identical playstyles, making it even more egregious and really taking away the meaning of Surge's legendary rarity, and especially Clancy's mythic rarity. Overall, a lot of these legendaries are losing what made them feel unique and actually legendary. Crow has lost his poison, Leon has lost his invisibility, and Surge has lost his leveling up. Once upon a time, these brawlers actually felt important, unique, and exemplified what it meant to be a brawler of the legendary rarity. But without that uniqueness, they don't really have the same feeling of importance as they once did, and it really makes their legendary classification feel more like a formality than the actual truth. The third and final reason why rarities don't feel the same anymore is the addition of the Starr Road. I want to make this very, very clear. I love the Starr Road, and it's one of the best additions to the game Brawl Stars has made, making the game much more free-to-play friendly, replacing the gambling nightmare it was to get new brawlers back in the old days of boxes. That being said, it didn't do many favors for rarities themselves though. As I just mentioned, boxes used to be a gambling nightmare when it strictly came to unlocking new brawlers. It was quite easy to get rare and super rare brawlers, and somewhat for epic brawlers, but it was absolutely terrible for unlocking mythic and legendary brawlers, as the drop rates were minuscule. This is obviously not a good thing from an empirical standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint, it made legendaries and mythics stand out, and feel really important and valuable. They were so rare that if you got one of them from a box, it would undoubtedly make your day or even your week, making them feel very hyped and special. However, this all changed when the Starr Road came about. It confined progression to a predictable, and let's be real, a boring path. Obviously, this is better for our progression, but you can't deny it's a lot less exciting as it once was. And this holds true for mythic and legendary brawlers as well. You were now guaranteed to get them after a certain time, and you would know which one you were unlocking at all times. Furthermore, you would get more brawlers from the Starr Road than you ever would from boxes. But more importantly, you would get a lot more legendaries and mythics, and much faster than you would with boxes. This was much more fair progression, but it came at the cost of making legendaries and mythics feel less special, and more like a rarity that just took a long time to unlock in the Starr Road. To fix this and add a little bit of fun sources of progression, Supercell added Starr Drops to the game. Starr Drops have the chance to drop a lot of stuff like coins and power points, but most importantly, they can drop brawlers like boxes used to. This had both a pro and a con. For the pro, it did bring back the hype of getting brawlers from mega boxes, but this time it was for Starr Drop. It wasn't the exact same, but that's mostly due to nostalgia, and it's still very hype when you get a mythic, and especially for getting a legendary brawler from a Starr Drop. However, there was a con to Starr Drops being able to drop brawlers. It simply added another route for getting brawlers. The Starr Road already gave more brawlers to players, and of course, more legendary and mythic brawlers to players. But letting players unlock brawlers from Starr Drops was a little bit overkill, and saw even more legendaries and mythics being unlocked, making it feel more like a normal occurrence when you unlocked a new mythic/legendary, unlike the old days, as I've mentioned way too many times already. Overall, it feels like rarities have lost their meaning and their value over the years. I promise this isn't just nostalgia bait. I hate nostalgia bait a lot too, don't worry. The volume of mythic and legendary brawlers have dramatically increased since the early days, in comparison to brawlers of other rarities, making their rarities feel less special as there becomes more and more of them, while rarities that shouldn't feel special, like rare and super rare, have much less brawlers. And if Brawl Stars ever announced a new super rare or rare brawler, it would cause a much bigger commotion than the release of a new legendary brawler. Let that sink in. Furthermore, within the legendary brawlers themselves, the uniqueness that made them so special has started to wane. Brawlers like Crow, Leon, and Surge are losing their special mechanics to more and more brawlers, with some cases like Byron and Clancy basically taking the entire mechanic into their base kit, and in the case of Juju and Kit, having the mechanic available in a gadget that was only accessible through a super. Finally, the addition of the Starr Road, and to a lesser extent, Starr Drops, have increased the quantity of these mythic and legendary brawlers that are being unlocked. The Starr Road specifically has removed some of the mystique and hype around unlocking new legendary brawlers, as it has removed the randomness, and dare I say, gambling, from unlocking new brawlers, which is obviously a good change, but doesn't do any favors for helping keep the aura, as the kids say, for these higher rarity brawlers. At the end of the day, it isn't the biggest issue in the world, and it's not one with a really easy fix, as there's a lot of intangibles that go into this. But it is a worrying trend, if you will, that I noticed, and thought to point out with this video. Anyway, thanks for watching. Watch this video, or this playlist, or join the Discord server.